Welcome to all you curious minds out there to another episode of Flying Chariots-The Rise. Guys, before we start, I'd like to thank everyone out there for the support, whether it's in the form of emails, comments, or by subscribing. You guys are just wonderful. Because we do all this not just to feed our brains with the puzzle pieces of a bigger picture, but mostly for all you out there. There are so many interesting people on this planet that unfortunately don't get enough attention. And this is why people like Brandon, Dustin, or my German colleagues, as well as Aage, sit at their desks every day to find and research these interesting topics for you. But all of this would be worth nothing without your love and support. So once again, guys, a big thank you. But now, let's get high on some knowledge, guys. Tonight, I have the great honor and pleasure of talking to two incomparable adventurers. On one hand, we have the host and author Aage Nost, who previously honored us with his extensive knowledge and experience and mesmerized us with his wide-ranging expertise. On the other hand, we welcome Brandon Thomas, the host of the Expanding Reality podcast. In his show, Brandon engages with fascinating guests, utilizing his talent and intellect to skillfully explore even the most incredible topics, coaxing surprising answers that leave us all astonished. And alongside Brandon and Aage, we'll be jumping down some interesting rabbit holes today, guys. Of course, all of you out there are also invited to share your opinions and critiques on today's topics with us in the comments. Okay, guys, welcome, you curious folks out there, and thank you for joining us for the latest episode of Flying Chariots-The Rise. All of you sitting at your devices, feel free to hit the like button already, because if you've seen who our guests today, you know it's gonna be good. With me today are Aage Nost and Brandon Thomas. How are you doing, guys?
We're holding up.
Every day above ground's a great day, so I'm doing well.
Yeah.
I'm sitting with you gentlemen right now. This is outstanding.
Let's jump right in, Aage. Aage changed our master plan a little bit before we started, and he wants to start off with a very, very interesting and important topic.
Yeah, I know we're going to probably get into about every corner of the universe by the time we're done, but that's good. But I just thought of something right before I connected with you guys, and that is that when people talk about looking glass and shape-shifting UFOs and things like this, and if you talk to Joe Blow and Harry Hohandle down the street about these things, his eyes glaze over and they slide back in the back of the head and they walk off, stumble away from you. They don't want to hear it because they don't understand. That's because they haven't really looked into the science behind these things. And I have. The thing is that we have been so royally screwed by the people that upstairs that think they own us, that we have been brainwashed into thinking that whatever they do and whatever they say is the absolute truth. And you flip that coin around, and I would say whatever they do and whatever they say is the absolute lie. I can probably pretty close to prove that, because when it comes to, I mentioned before the show, the looking glass, that's just one small technology that is used to know the future and also have a look at the past. And that sounds so ridiculous. There are some scientists that is saying that, yeah, there may be something to that. Another one is, I wrote something down here, and that is, I have it in notes from before, and that says, Ben Rich, he was the head of the Lockheed Skunk Works. And he said one time that we know how to take ET home, and it would not take a lifetime to do it. We already have the means to travel among the stars, but these technologies are locked up in black projects, and it would take an act of God to ever get them out to benefit mankind. Now, if we think about that for a moment, he didn't say that last week. He, from the, technology that they developed in the last couple of years. No, he said that in 1978. 78, 88, 98, 2008, 2018, that is 45 years ago. Can you imagine what their technology is now? We need to think about that. Next time that somebody tell us something that is way out there, maybe it's possible. But also he said, if you have seen it on Star Trek, we already know how to do it. There is an error in the equations, and we know what it is. If we can imagine a lot of things that can be done, mostly expressed through science fiction, if only 10% of that is actually real, can you imagine what that would do for us? Now that's powerful. That's why I am totally on board with the looking glass and many other things that I looked into that sounds like sound fiction, but is real. And remember also, the head of the CIA under Ronald Reagan, William Casey, he said, when we find that everything the American public believe is false, we know our disinformation program is working. Where are we? Everything we think we know may be a lie. Can we live with that? And that is not just America. The rest of the world is also a lapdog to the United States and the CIA. They have a lot of power. Well, up till now, it's changing real fast. Wow. If you look at those things, I just put a post on my Facebook page. Somebody that came out from the dark behind the scene now as a whistleblower, and he said that they have been working with polymorphid metals. That is metals that will react to magnetic fields or mind-to-mind commands. Though that metal is graphene oxide. Guess where we have that these days? Because they're saying that you can build a ship of this metal, and then the AI that controls it would be able to give it commands to take on the looks that is commanded into the program. It can change shape, or it can heal itself. If let's say it was shot at and there was a hole in there, the substance will fill in the hole and repair itself.
We're talking about black goo? The black goo project, maybe?
That, and also the graphene.
Do you think that some of these craft could be alive, like organic beings? I'm thinking of Dave Dare when he said that he went and shot his rocket out at Area 51. He was also shown a craft, allegedly, or the heart of a craft, and he felt intuitively that it was alive and that it was organic in nature. That also sort of takes care of the interface issue with pilots being able to respond with commands via physical controls, right? It's an interface issue. It has to take that amount of time. You can interface directly. That's an efficient way to travel. I love what you're talking about the self-replicating or the self-healing sort of alloys as well. And, you know, it's so interesting. We have such a limited perspective of what is possible here. I think, like you said, through an apprehension of consciousness, there's a perception management that goes on with our governments around the world, and especially the space programs to a large degree, about what's going on here. And it's interesting to shine the light on this stuff. And man, I'm grateful that we're doing so. So this just opens up to more questions of what the possibilities of something like this could be.
Yeah. Absolutely. And what David Adair said, and also what others have said, I think those ships, they are sentient. Why shouldn't they be? We have robots today that claim they are sentient. If you expand the technology, let's say 1,000 years into the future, that may be the case in some of those alien technologies. Why should they not be sentient? Let's throw logic in the middle of it and destroy the paradigm of all the naysayers.
It's so interesting what Brandon just said, because not too long ago I recorded an episode with my friend, and we talked about this black goo, about the Black Project, and we talked about how black goo could be a spaceship and its own pilot at the same time. It's practically what you just said, Brandon. I find it so interesting, man.
Well, it's fascinating to think of these concepts as integrated organics, right? Because it changes the definition of life at that point. Because if you've got Elon Musk wanting to shove Neuralink in your head, and that's just the next step, because you'll find the interface to be so efficient that you'll be crazy not to have it on a level of commerce or anything like that due to the speed and efficiency of this thing, if enough people take it, which we know they're gonna, right? And so it's interesting to see this biological integration with technology, or technocracy, as we've been talking about, and then just scale it up, as Aage was saying here, give it a few thousand years and, see what they do with it. Now you're a pilot flying your own ship that can change into whatever and heal anytime. It's fascinating.
Absolutely. And that chip in the brain, it will start out on the inside. But later technologies, you don't have to put it inside the skull anymore. It will be hanging off the air or somewhere on the outside, which will interact with the brain through a magnetic field that transmits information back and forth. So this is coming. And those that have that brain chip, they will have unlimited access to everything on the internet. Think about that. Oh, the people's going to love it.
I think about that, but then I think about what the internet's turned into, and would that be a good thing? Because think of all the spams and click-offs and bots and all that kind of shit, and then scale that a couple whenever they were able to roll this thing out, and then now you're bombarded with that constantly. Honestly, pass, just for that reason alone. I don't have my notifications on for those simple reasons, but just to navigate those things can be maddening in itself. And if you look at this place as all mental and energy expansion, as I do, then you just don't participate in such things. But then to scale this again, to integrate it, to say, oh, but you'll have the majesty of the internet. Well, a lot of the internet shit, to be honest with you. So, I mean, I'd like to be able to tailor it a bit, probably.
Agree.
I think I would probably want the second one to the last one to do this. But I think also that a lot of people will, because of the capabilities, like you said, in business and in science. You can do amazing things with it, until that the body figure out that it's a foreign object and they start rejecting it. I'm sure that's going to happen a lot.
Well, do you think that I feel that what's occurring is they're biologically engineering us to be more accepting of non-biological material in the chemtrails and the foods and the metals that are in heavy metals that are in our foods and our vaccines, all that kind of stuff. So if you're going to stick that chip in your head, you've made a level of decisions that enables your body to be fortified for such a thing, because you're, eating the Doritos, you're taking a pass on your spiritual growth. You're not working out. There's like a list of things you're probably doing that says, yeah, give me that thing. And maybe it's preconditioning us to be terraformed, honestly, for this horrible integration in some level. Yeah. Maybe what the hybrid program's all about too, at some degree.
I sure hope, and I kind of think it is, the internet that is available through that chip will be somewhat like a computer, that you don't have to look at everything all the time. If you want to look at something, you think on it and then say, I want that, and then that will show up. So we don't have the spams and all of it, flooding us all the time. Maybe just whatever we want to see is coming into conscious awareness. Mm-hmm. I would think so.
That's an interesting thought. But who will have access to this technology? Not everybody. We wouldn't.
Yeah.
Here's the thing, is if it's free, I bet you it's going to be very available. And that's my call on this. It's going to be extremely affordable and very available, because they're going to want as many people to have it as possible. And so there's going to be an elite version where it doesn't hijack your consciousness and make you go Manchurian Candidate in the middle of the night. But that level is only available for the Gold Plus members, which, yes, you will not be a part of, right? Mm-hmm. And so there's a level of filter, perhaps, that's installed, an upgrade that you get at a certain level, but they're going to pass this thing out in Cracker Jack boxes. You mark my words. They're going to want everybody to have this.
Yep.
I guess so. Yeah, we already have it in the form of our cell phones. I see kids running around outside. Everybody sticks its face into this fucking device. It's driving me mad, man. I remember when I went to school back then. I was at the bus station. I don't know, playing ball with my buddies until the bus came. Now you're going to the bus station, to the train station. All these kids standing there, and nobody's talking with each other. Everybody's looking at his cell phone. They're standing side by side, but nobody's communicating with each other. This is crazy.
Yeah, that's the downside of it. We lose sight of each other. It creates a separation and a connected it that is only through the device.
It's hard to wrap my mind around the thought that there's people out there, and I know there is. Of course, I know there is. But it's hard to wrap my mind around that we have people creating that shit, and they really want people to become like this. That's wild, man. The thought makes me crazy.
It's when you start inserting models, like I've been researching lately, the Demiurge, and that this place is really a post-tribulation, rapture place. If you want to look at it like that, it starts to make a lot of sense on an energetic harvest level, especially when you're talking about integrating technology with this thing, which is all integrated in technology. That's how it transfers, because it's organic materials here. So anything like that claims to be inorganic, yes, but also it's made here of this place, of this terra firma, with electrical properties, magnetic properties that still apply, and they apply to your bodies as conduits as well. So it's interesting when we start this bifurcation method of this psychology, which is really what it is. And some people call it a spiritual warfare. I'm not a fan of the idea that it's automatically combative, but I do agree with the turmoil observation that it's challenging. And so you could call it a war, but also this technocracy integration. I think it's the same thing, just masking itself at different levels. And really, this is what the 5D or the fifth dimension is all about, is taking you deeper into the game. Either spiritual people will want it on that basis, or technocracy folks will want it on that basis, and they'll willingly take it. Either way, it's diving deeper into the illusion in some degree. It also, I feel, will be available through a cell phone program. I'm grateful that you brought that up, Daniel. It's like it'll kind of be an option for an upgrade at some point with your cell phone. It'll just be offered by Apple, and it'll just be integrated with Neuralink. And what it does is instead of this brick you got to carry around, which will be stupid, people are going to make fun of other people. It's going to be a tribal thing to be extricated from the tribe, just simply because you don't take this mark, right? This thing. But eventually that brick will be phased out. It'll be antiquated, and then you can't even get that. And it'll just be the head thing that you had the option for. I think this is what's occurring. And it does, like I said, feel spiritual, but it's being packaged as something else, is what I feel like.
No, they camouflage it very well.
Fucking A.
And they want everybody to be on it. I seen there's booths here on the street in Tucson where it says free cell phone. Government is giving it out, especially we have a lot of homeless people in Tucson because it's nice and warm in the winter. So they are walking around and making sure all the homeless people get a cell phone. What is the motivation for that? They give away cell phones to absolutely everybody that signs up for it. And of course, it's 5G. So here we go. They want everybody, just like China. They're giving away a cell phone to every citizen in China, free.
It is. Sorry, Brandon. It's like watching a science fiction movie, and you, as the observer, you're sitting in front of your TV and you say, "What the fuck? Why don't you guys get it?" Yes. I know the plot already, and these guys in the TV, in the story, they just don't get it. But we're in it. Absolutely. Sorry, Brandon, please go on.
No, brilliant observation. I'm with you, because we all get this what the fuck are you talking about kind of moment. You're just like, are you kidding me with this? How do you not see it? And it's a tough time. And that's honestly, I feel, an energetic sink in itself. That's a game, that's a whirlpool in itself, where yes, obviously these things are paradoxical in nature. They're riddled with confusion and with subjugation of your rights, of your natural sovereignty. You have to abjugate yourself constantly to this system, but no one can see it. And I'm to the point to where, man, I'm done yelling. I'm done Paul revering, right? I thought I was done with it, and then went through a new level of dark night of the soul where I'm really over this shit. And so I'm just on my path. If you're in my path, I will be of service. And you guys know me personally. I'm here to be of the greatest of service. I have a lot to offer. But anything other than that, no, I'm out of it, because it's this idea of offering your energy to something. And that I feel is the real currency here, which again, what this like tapped into your phone constantly, this constant distraction from your purpose or from your joys in life. And it's this apprehension of your consciousness, which is what I feel fascinating about this whole damn place, man. But there was, to the last point, I'll wrap up. The Dell Computer Company did this with children in the schools in America. They gave all these laptops away, and it come to find out the laptops were spying on every single household that was given a laptop to. So the whole point to remember here, kids, is if it's free, you're the product. Okay, keep that in mind.
Right. There's an old saying that I've been using ever so often. Is, why does mice get killed in the mousetrap? It's because they don't understand why the cheese is free.
Nailed it. I love that. Nailed it, Aage. God.
Do you guys remember when you were at one point in life, we all, also me, we were young and wild and free, and we had no cell phones and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And we wanted it all. I had big plans for my life, man. I had really big plans for my life. I wanted this and I wanted everything. I wanted to conquer the world. I wanted to travel. I wanted this and that. But now you have these young people there. I have a stepson and a daughter here with almost 12, with the faces in the cell phone every day. I just want the latest iPhone. That's crazy. I wanted it all when I was young. I didn't know about cell phones when I was 16 and about the internet and stuff like that. It was 96. I think the internet was there already, but I had no internet and nobody I knew had internet. And I didn't care about the internet and about cell phones. I wanted to conquer the world, man. But now the dreams are a little bit smaller, I guess.
Yeah, and when I grew up as a little kid, I was amazed at the telephone. You could talk into this thing and they could actually hear you across town. Oh man, that dates back so far. My telephone number when I was a little kid, like 5, 6, 7 years old, was number 3. Because we were number 3 in our part of the country to get telephone.
That's such a funny joke. It's like an old person joke. It's like you're so old in history class, you just wrote down what you were doing. You know, when I was young, my phone number was 3, right? It's just that's hilarious, man.
Yeah. But guys, let me change the topic here for a second. But, well, we're not really changing, just a little bit, because you started off with the project Looking Glass with timelines and stuff. And in our first recording, Aage, you and I, and maybe Brandon and I talked about it too, I don't recall. In our first recording, we only briefly touched on the subject of time travel. We're dealing with the topic, and of course, you have your thoughts on it. And I think today is a good opportunity to take a closer look at the topic of time travel, because there are many different views and aspects, theories, whatever here. So what is your approach when we're talking about time travel, Aage?
Well, it's traveling in time. First of all, it would probably be good to understand, what is time? Is it even real? I hear scientists are telling people that there is no physical evidence to the fact that time travel even exists. So then, how do we have time? Well, I have a little bit of an advantage in understanding that, because I did have the universe downloaded to me in a download where I could see how things worked. And time, let's see, how should I go about telling it? It's kind of like the only thing there is the present moment. But we have present moments that is stacked in form of pictures or mental image frames, one after another one. And they are stacked so close that when we move through it, it looks like one movie, and you are the star actor in it. Now, the distance between each frame is appeared to be the Planck distance. And now, when we understand that there are only present moments and they are placed one after another and we move through it, that explains the physical part of it. But there's more than that to time too, because it is recorded. Once we pass through those frames, whatever is back here doesn't go away. It is recorded. And on top of that, if we have thought about something, it is placed into the unified field as potential for physical creation. So actually, we create the future before we move through it. And now, if we are to the physical reality is kind of locked into some laws where there's very little fluidity. But once we step outside into, let's say, plasmic fields, or at a higher vibration than what we can see in the physical reality, in that narrow band that we can observe and participate in, then there are other realities. If we accelerate ourselves to a higher vibration out of the physical, we can move forward and backward in time to a predetermined, mentally desired present moment. And then we lower, this is what spaceships, extraterrestrial ships, I suppose, what they do. They accelerate out of the physical, travel to any place they want, and then they lower the vibration into that specific present moment of time. And now they operate there and they can participate in whatever goes on there. And they can accelerate themselves again and come back, decrease the vibration again, and participate. So that is one way of doing it. And now, of course, there is other ways, and that is by creating a plasma bubble that is also out of the physical, and inside of that plasma bubble, you can direct it in different directions. Probably somewhat of the same type of mental technology, but I believe it could be probably, I would say, easier to do that. There are technologies like the time travel device that I have, and there's a very strong electromagnet that creates a bubble around the body. And inside that bubble, you can direct it. I have some strange pictures that is probably one of the few evidence of time travel that there is. In fact, if you go to broadcastteamalpha.com, go into the picture gallery, and I believe it is page 17 in the middle of the page. There's two pictures next to each other. They look similar, but they're not. But they're also taken at the same time. Two different realities. So there's also time slippage involved as well as time travel. And if you read the text in there, you will understand how it was done. So this is what BBC television got excited about in 2003, and they were coming over to the United States to do a hey, there you go. Yeah, you got to go to page 17 to scroll down a little bit. If you do that, I'll talk in the meantime. BBC television, they found out about a TV show that I did in Tucson, where I was interviewing the guy that created the time travel device. it got very interesting. BBC television called and said, we're coming over to the United States to do a TV documentary on time travel. We're going to have Michio Kaku and Green, and I think they mentioned another theoretical physicist on there. He talked me into joining them. I learned a lot since that video.
How was Dr. Green in person?
The thing is that I never got to meet them because Michio Kaku did the interview in New York, and Green, he did it somewhere else, and I did it in New Orleans. So they got me down there. I learned a lot about timelines because we are in timelines we can switch timeline, create new timelines. And I've done that several times. Growing up in Norway on the farm, I was supposed to be a farmer. I even went ahead and became an agronomist. But I figured it out I didn't want to do that. So I left Norway and came to the United States. That's when I created a new timeline for myself. According to quantum mechanics, the old timeline still may exist because it's all energy. I'm wondering how the guy back there is still doing, though. But when you totally change to a different direction than what you have planned or done before, that ends up as a new timeline. So when back in 2003, I was all embedded in the horrors of what governments are doing, the government corruption and all that. And that's where my mind was. So that's what I saw in the future. And a lot of the stuff that I talk about on there, that didn't happen because later I switched. I turned into more of a spiritual quantum mechanic reality because most of the spirituality can be explained through quantum mechanics anyway. So I went that route, and I'm glad I did because otherwise probably some of that stuff that I saw would have happened in my timeline. But time is movable. The present moments, you can visit them in the future, you can visit them in the past, but we are in a mind-created universe, so whatever we create here and here, I'm pointing to the heart because there's a little brain in the heart with some 40 to 60,000 neurons that is responsible for emotion, and emotion is extremely important. The feeling and the motion is very important in communicating with the universal mind. That is the spiritual language.
Let me tell you what my approach is when it comes to the topic of time travel. And it's somewhat similar to what you just told us a little bit. I think that if it's ever possible to travel through time, and we don't have to agree, both forwards and backwards, it won't be a machine that enables us to do so. It will be made possible by our bodies and our consciousness. We will find a way to, let's say we'll find a way to utilize our mental capacity to a great extent, and then such things will be possible, and not just time travel, maybe other things too, like telepathy, telekinesis, whatever, stuff like that. I think time travel can be made possible by our bodies and our consciousness, if we just know how to do it. And I'm talking about frequencies.
Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. The mind.
A bunch of ways it happens. Like Grabenikov's work with the bugs and stuff like that. He was creating these UFOs, but that scaled up is time travel, right? You know, if essentially these vehicles can lift out of the limits of this realm, which some say would be the speed of light, sort of the signpost of that. But it's interesting when you start talking about these different methodologies for achieving this, what we would find to be supernatural, but then also technologically, I guess, solvable challenge that we have. It's just interesting. I think there's something to all of it. I think the sarcophagus and the Great Pyramid at Giza sort of tells us something about resonance as well. That when you lay in that thing, your body sort of does something. And maybe, Daniel, to what you were saying, the mummies maybe are just these dudes that said, you know what, I like the universe better. If I don't come back in like 5 minutes, you know, just wrap me up and then I'm going to stay there. And then your body's off to the side. And looking at all the things I have over just doing the show and the decades of research into the fringe, that I've started to look at this like our bodies as just vehicles in themselves, like vessels, right? Just like the governments treat you in maritime law, you're a vessel. And so this is inhabitable. And so to what you're saying, Daniel, with your consciousness, then you could just jump into somebody else in a different time, essentially. Maybe it's you, maybe it's not. And that's a whole nother rabbit hole. But then you think about that movie, Doctor Strange, damn it, it was about the multiverse. It was the Multiverse of Madness. Have you guys seen that yet?
No.
In that, basically, there's something called dreamwalking, where they're able to take their consciousness and go to a different version of them in another reality and walk around as if it's them with their consciousness. So this is sort of to the degree of what you're talking about. Highly recommend that movie, by the way. Directed by Sam Raimi. So it's one of the most different Marvel movies if you want to check it out. Anyway, it sort of is this consciousness thing, but also seems to be solvable by either bug wings or technology. It's fascinating, man. This bustling holiday season, you might be looking for nutritious, flavorful meals to fuel you on jam-packed days. Factor, America's #1 ready-to-eat meal delivery service, can help you eat well for breakfast, lunch, and dinner with chef-prepared, dietitian-approved, ready-to-eat meals delivered straight to your door. You'll save time and stay on track with your healthy lifestyle while tackling all of your holiday to-dos. Head to factormeals.com/expandingreality50 and use code expandingreality50 to get 50% off. That's expandingreality50 as in 50 at factormeals.com/expandingreality50 to get 50% off. Now that is, again, the expanding reality, like the words, just group them together there, no capitals. And then 50, the number 50, tack it on at the end, and you've nailed it. Y'all have a wonderful holiday season there.
Yes, and in fact, I read in about 6 or 7 different scientific journals that, yes, time travel is possible. We know how to do it. And in fact, even Scientific Americans got an article on it. We talked to a scientist. There is one major one here over in Europe, and that is BBC.com. I'll give you the site. BBC.com/news/July 11, 2018. And they're talking to scientists, and they're saying, yes, we know how to build a time machine. So it is possible. And even Michio Kaku says that, yeah, we know how to do that. We just don't have the fuel to fuel it yet. Now, he is omitting to think of the one fuel that can do absolutely anything in a mind-created universe, and that's the mind. He's looking at the nuts on the bolt.
Yes.
That's why he needs the energy of a sun to fuel it. Don't need that.
I think I would have the same approach. I'm a nuts and bolts guy. But
yeah.
Let me tell you a little story. If you allow, let me tell a little story. In the same context with time travels, I'd like to talk about all these portal stuff. And I have heard stories where people have unintentionally entered some kind of portal and experienced a time anomaly. A friend of mine who is an author here in Germany traveled to France many years back with his wife, and he visited several places and traveled a lot through the country with his car. And at one point, they came across a small village. There were really only a few houses, which also looked, let's say, pretty poor, and in not so good condition. And there were a few people standing around in front of houses, and what made him wonder was the fact that these people were dressed kind of strangely, kind of funny. And my friend and his wife, they decided not to go there directly, and instead took some pictures with their camera from the distance. Because they didn't want these people there to feel bad when tourists come and see the misery there. Long story short, back home, my friend developed the films, and exactly these pictures could not be seen. They were blurred and were not recognizable anymore. So the following year, he went back to the same place, but the village, surprise, surprise, was no longer there. They asked a few people many miles down the road about this village. They asked what kind of village was it, what's the name of the village, and what happened. And they said they knew nothing about a village there. There must have been one, like, way back in time. And this raises questions. I believe this guy. He's a friend of mine. He's a personal friend of mine. He's a book publisher and writes a lot about this portal stuff. And this story drove him to write these books. Like I said, this raises a few questions. Were people really in a time anomaly? And if so, why and how did it show up? And what was the reason for this portal to open for them? Is it certain people who are causing this? Is it us? Or are they just at the right place at the right time, you know? These are the questions I'm asking.
I think there's a rift in the time continuum that created time slippage. They slipped into a parallel timeline that had that village in it. And then they came back home into the first timeline where they were. These kinds of stuff, it happens quite a bit. But our problem is that when these things happen, the first thing we do, we jump right on top of it and we try to explain it away because, no, that couldn't be right. I didn't really see that. Oh, but I just thought that couldn't be right. Don't discard it. It may be very real, like that guy lived.
What happens if you just stay there? Like, what would have happened if they were to go into one of those houses, like eat a meal? If they eat the meal, are they now part of that realm? And then when they go back out, their car's gone, or what happens? Is it temporary? Can it take you with it? Because we were who was that talking? I was talking to somebody about Michael Cameron recently on the show, incredible experiencer and author as well. And he talked about the Oz effect, and that would be a question I would have for them as well. Did they have some sort of auditory noticeable change in environment, right? Like all the bugs go silent, everything, right? No birds and whatever. And he explained that when you're in this thing, you sort of disappear from everything. So this would be why you have this auditory effect, is because you're no longer in the environment where those sounds are being generated, but you can see it, which is fascinating. It's this really interesting slip over, but as well with these time slip anomalies, is it sort of something you can get stuck in? And is this what sort of the missing persons cases are? Because if these do happen in an area regularly, let's say that governments of the world know that these happen in certain areas. Maybe they would forbid those areas, or they would limit access to those areas, or they would call them national parks, and then just people go missing all the time in environments like that, right? Maybe it's just a time slip scooping people up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And especially in the northwestern part of the United States, in the national park, there's a lot of people missing. Of course, they have bears out there too, but
right.
That doesn't explain everything.
There's those missing 411 cases that are fascinating. David Paulides talks about, and just these bodies being found in weird ways with their clothes and awkward or put back on, like they were taken off, almost in some of these abduction cases as well, where they were kind of put on with their shoes backwards or on the wrong feet or pants backwards, stuff like this, like they were redressed and then dropped from like an awesome height or something like that, because branches then will be broken where their body was laying. It's these crazy things, and miles away from where their footsteps just stop in the snow and the dogs have no track anymore. It's these crazy cases like that, but maybe it's these areas,
What you just said reminded me of the Philadelphia experiment.
Yeah.
Yeah, people were...
No, it was just a degaussing. That was all it was. Yeah, it was just degaussing.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, right. Of course. Guys, Aage gave us an hour, and I want to discuss another topic with Aage before we come to an end here. And Aage made me curious about an interesting topic. He asked me if I was aware of the Germans' Roswell.
Yeah.
Please fill us in, Aage.
Yeah.
I mentioned it a couple of 3 days ago, and did you search anything and find anything on it?
I found something that is called the Hauneboom myth.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Am I right?
Yeah, it's a myth. Of course it is. What else can they say? They can't admit to it.
Yeah.
They can admit
if they were to do that, everything will be over. Because in 75 years, they should have been able to back engineer those things so they could fly with free energy and all kinds of good stuff. No, you can't You can't admit to things like that. But Germany had their own Roswell in 1936, and that was right down where you're at in Bavaria. It's a large craft, I believe. And okay, let me back up again. A lot of this come from Colonel Wendell Stevens here in Tucson. He was probably the one that is most knowledgeable on the German flying saucers in the world. He had researched it since the very beginning, and he went to Europe, poked around, and he found a lot of it. He had some German documents written in German, and I was able to read some of that, and it proves a lot of the stuff he was talking about. Because that, in 1936 in Bavaria, when the Germans found that craft, it was rather large. I seem to believe there was about 60 meters across. That's 180 feet or so for you Americans out there. And they couldn't get into it. They were poking around for quite a lengthy period of time. Just they tried everything, explosives and blow torches, and they said they couldn't get in, but they did get in. And what they also noticed was that they tried to lift it. And this was a big craft, and one person could lift it. It was almost weightless. So evidently, just because the craft did not shut down the gravity nullification bubble. And that also explains why sometimes we find crashed flying saucers that crashed at hundreds of miles an hour into the ground and suddenly stop. But the aliens inside are still alive, because the gravity nullification effect acts on every cell of their body. So there is no gravity inside either. So this way they can survive the crash. And what they found out in Germany was that they could get in, and they found some bodies inside. And I wasn't quite sure if some of them were alive or not, but they did get in there, and they took it, they flew it out of there, took it somewhere else, and they were able to back engineer it, and that was probably part of the technology that ended up in the Haunebu 1, 2, and 3, and possibly 4, which they used a little different. But from what Colonel Stevens said, he said that there was, they call it, after they re-engineered it, it was called the Thule engine. The Die Glocke, I guess, that, or the bell. So they found a lot of the technology there that they took and brought into the later crafts, together with the channelings that Maria Ortiz, or Maria Orzik is what she's called now. She was channeling information from a being or someone in the Aldebaran star system. And they gave her technology, and she kept writing down everything that she was given. And she did that for about a year, and everybody was laughing at her. You know, a 19-year-old uneducated girl come up with all these equations, and yeah, sure you do. And but she did get it finally in front of a high-ranking military officer, and he thought it was interesting. So he took it to a scientist, and the scientist, according to what Colonel Stevens said, the scientist looked at the papers, and he said, "Bring me the girl," because there was something there that he saw that made sense. From there on, she was working with the military. She was giving them more and more information as it was channeled, because the person, I guess I should call him, in the Aldebaran star system, he told her that we are giving you this information so you can build a craft. to come and visit us. And of course, the Germans had different ideas than that. That was all about conquest and war, what they were concerned. Even before the Second World War started, they had plans. So yeah, this is just one place, and then we have probably, go out on a limb here, but maybe there are hundreds over the last century, hundreds of crashed flying discs that has been collected by different governments, and then most of them end up in the United States because they got the big stick, you know. So it ended up here being back engineered, and a lot of the UFOs we see today, they're not from other planets. They're right from Area 51 or the space in Canada, which they build them. Or I think from what Colonel Stevens said, the Brits are making it and the Russians are making it. And I would say probably the Chinese are making them. But they're holding them back for something.
So,
and I wonder what that is.
Are you telling me that the Nazis back then, they found a crashed UFO and they re-engineered it?
The Hanebus, they were taken into the Deep Dark Project in Germany, and they were very, well, the Black Sun was one of them, and they developed this, and the Führer, the Adolf Hitler, he didn't even know much about it. He knew a little bit about that there were some futuristic technologies that was being developed, but they didn't really tell him a lot, because I think by the time they were into the Second World War, the high command realized that the sleeping giants, which was America, joined the war, we will probably lose. So they started to move a lot of the technologies out to their bases in Antarctica and other places. I do have some interesting stuff that I was able to glean from the papers with Wendell Stevens. Here I have the specs of a Haunebu 2 and the 3. I can take the next 25 seconds to read it to you. This is what, in fact, I had on my computer, on another computer that crashed on me, one of the flight tests of a Haunebu 2 that went from the surface to 60,000 feet in 3 minutes, straight up against the gravity. That's pretty quick. And the Haunebu 2 was 26 meters across. That's about 75 feet or so. It was called the V7. They had a Thule Tachinator 7C engine in it. That was the bell. And they had magnetic directional impulse steering. But there, in some of them also, they had a gyroscope to create stability. And they could go 6,000 kilometers an hour, or that's right, about 13,000 miles an hour. So the hull was double with a cooling liquid inside of it. And the metal that was on the outside was called, they developed that. It was called the Victalian, with the name of the metal. And they had a crew of 9 people and a bunch of armaments. There's 6 cannons, and they also had a weapon system they called the Motorstopper. The motor stopper. And that was actually a Pristron tube, which was a directional EM pulse. As we know, light, it kind of somewhat similar to a laser beam, because laser beams, they're all light, but they're phased so that the sine waves don't bump into each other. They are paired so that the light doesn't spread. And here they used the EM pulse, the electromagnetic waves, to be paired so that they didn't spread, they became directional. And as a novelty, they used this one time during the Second World War, and the very, very end of it. The Allied forces flew about 800 bombers in over Germany in one night. And they lost a third of them that one night. And the Allied forces said, gosh, the Germans have something we don't understand. If this is what's going to happen, we're going to lose the war. So they scrambled and created a ground invasion. That's how it happened. It was just thrown together. Couldn't been done worse. That's why so many people died. But the Germans, they flew these Hauneboos up behind the fleet. And they aimed the Tristram tube at the aircraft, burned up the electronics. There went the engines, they quit, and they became a glider and crashed in Germany. About a third of them, the 800. And this was a story that was quite colorful, the way that Wendell Stevens had it, because he had somebody from over there that was a pilot. He talked about it, because when they came up from behind like that, with no lights on them, nobody could see them. They shut down the engines and the radio equipment, so they couldn't tell anybody that they were going down. Yeah. And so the Hauneboo 3 was a little bigger. That was 230 feet wide. And that had the same kind of hull with Vactalian metals, a crew of 32 people. And they used it a lot for evacuation of crew and material down from Germany to the base 211 in Neue Schwabenland in Antarctica. And Stevens told me there were 19 known test flights with no crashes, because the Hauneboo 1 was unstable and it crashed a lot, so they couldn't find pilots to fly it anymore. So they scrapped that one and put it on the shelf and rebuilt it, and they became the Hauneboo 2.
What I'm curious about is something that you said earlier. You said those crafts were recovered back then, and there were also occupants. So
yeah.
What's the description of these pilots, and what happened to them? Were they alive or dead, or?
Some of them probably, even it was at night, you could, if the moon was out, I don't know, then you could still see some things on the ground. So you probably could find some fields and land in them, I would think that a lot of them did survive.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Just want to point out here as well that there are models of this that you can get, and you can actually get the Hauneboo 1, 2, and 3 and build these yourself, kids. So.
Oh, yeah. I've seen that.
That's
Gosh.
Cool. Along with the swastika, all the shit.
Oh, yeah. Just for the kids. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. This one, yeah. By an American-made company, I guarantee it.
Oh, so this is how it looked. It looks like it looks man-made.
Yeah,
it doesn't look out of space. It looks man-made. There was one. You just showed one with the freaking gun on the top. Yeah,
right here.
Damn.
Yeah, and then you think about this thing hovering over you in the forest. As you're walking around, it's just silly, kind of, but really ominous and weird.
Flying tank.
That could very well be a real picture. I'm not sure though.
I'm going to say with modern, I'm going to say it's digital just simply because the artifact here, plus there's no reflection on the window. Yeah. But it does look like it would be what it would look like had it been out there. And I like these when compared to the men next to them. And you can kind of see, look at this, Pegasus Hobbies. These are models that you can actually buy and build.
Yeah.
And so you've got these vehicles and this guy standing here to show scale. So this is the 2, which would be more of the 73-foot variety, right? And then the 3 would be more of the 120-foot, you said?
Yeah.
How many people fit in there?
9 for the crew of the 2, right? How many people were in the Hauneboo 3?
The Honeyboo 3 had, got in my notes here, that was the crew of 32.
32 dudes.
32 people.
Yeah.
That's wild, man.
It was huge, 71 meters across.
So this would be it has a number 3 on it, but I'm going to call it the Honeyboo 2.
Yeah, that's a 2.
Small.
Yeah, that's
right?
a 2.
See, we've learned a lot here. This is awesome.
It is.
Yeah, and then we have, according to Wendell Stevens, he says, I don't have the actual documents in German or the physical evidence that they did actually have a Honeyboo 4, but he said there were people talking about it. And that was 120 meters across, and that was a large crew in it. But they built that Honeyboo 4, he said, and they replaced the red mercury that they had in the counter-rotating drums inside of the bell. They replaced it with D2O, deuterium. That's heavy water. And radioactive water, they could get a lot more power out of it, and it was a lot faster. There you go. That's the one. And but the thing about it is that they also discovered that because of the radioactivity throughout the ship, they hadn't shielded it enough. So the people that was working on it got sick, and many of them died. And also the metal got brittle from having exposure to the radioactive radiation coming from D2O. And he said there is a strong rumor, he said, that they sent one of these onto Mars, but they lost contact with it, and they have no idea what happened.
I was just about to ask if these things are said to be able to fly in outer space or maybe interstellar space.
Oh, yeah. The Honeyboo 2 did. The Honeyboo...
gravity will.
Yeah, they sent the Honeyboo 2 to the moon and went around and mapped it. And they found one building up there, a very, very old, probably hundreds of thousands of years old building, stone building, that was a little dilapidated. And I have a picture of a NASA print of it in the bottom of a crater showing the building looked like a swastika. And the Germans fell in love with that thing, and they started rebuilding it. And I would say that's where they are. One of their bases today. You have a picture on Broadcast Team Alpha on broadcastteamalpha.com in the picture gallery, and I remember now that there's page 15, I think it is, for the time travel pictures.
Mm-hmm.
On it, brother.
So
all right,
go have a look at that later on.
There you go.
Yeah, Brandon, look it up. And an interesting little side story. Since we're talking about the Nazis and you mentioned Hitler, and we're talking about time travel and timelines, Brandon and we were just a few days ago, we were talking about the Untersberg, which is right on the border of Germany and Austria. And it's known for its time anomalies, and people say they have seen giants there and dwarves and all its strange stuff. But it's mostly known for its strange time anomalies, and it's also said to be a portal place. And Hitler himself, he knew about all these myths around the Unterberg, and he said, people say that, I can't confirm if it's true, but he said that if he dies, he wanted to be buried at the foot of the Untersberg because he knew about all the resurrection stories, because an emperor lies there inside the Untersberg, and he resurrects every now and then. And he wanted to be buried there because maybe he thought he will come back one day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, and now we see the time travel pictures on the top right-hand corner. And if you got to click on it, and then the text will come up. There you go. If you take the time later on and read that, it will make sense. The two big differences between the pictures is that one of them, the road is wet, it's been raining, and you have also in one of them, you have leaves on the trees, and the other one doesn't have leaves on the trees, but they're taking 1 minute and 5 seconds apart. I tried to get back to the same time, but it didn't quite work. I ended up being 1 minute and 5 seconds apart. So just go ahead and read that later on when you got the time, and you will understand how I did it.
Wow, interesting.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Yeah, because it's soaking wet in this when you have even the lights on and stuff from the overcast. Yes. And then over here.
Yeah, there are differences between the two of them. And it's kind of unlikely that a picture would grow leaves in 1 minute and 5 seconds. That's just a little unreasonable. And I know there's going to be people saying, yeah, he changed the date on it. Well, if anybody know anything about me, that is way above my pay grade. I have no clue on even how to think about doing something like that. I've been sitting on this picture for, I think, 13, 14 years before, I think about a couple of 3 years, I started talking about it a little bit. I didn't know what to do with it because I knew that few people would believe it anyway. So
very interesting, Aage.
Yeah.
Wow. It's wild, man. Your website's a phenomenal resource, so I just want to shout it out again, and that's why also I wanted to make sure we pull it up and show folks to go check it out. Highly recommend it.
There are 5,000 pictures of things that should not be, but it is.
But I think it's time to wrap it up for today. You reached the 1 hour mark. We crossed it already, Aage, that you gave us. But it was a pleasure to talk to you and also Brandon today. I had tons of fun, and I hope we can do this again in this constellation. I would love to.
Oh, sure. Just you call and I'll be there. I've never met a microphone I didn't like.
I did. But Brandon, since you're here today, and I really love you, man. You're awesome. And shout out to Brandon, Expanding Reality podcast. Awesome podcast. I just started watching your latest show before we started here with the Flat Earth guy.
Yeah, Tyler Hansen. It's a great one. Yeah, he finds dogs and stars. Like the stars, when you look at them and zoom in them, it looks like they're underwater, and he can find dog faces in almost all of them, which is dog is God spelled backwards. It's a really deep rabbit hole. It's fascinating.
It is. It is.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, maybe we should do a show too.
I'd be honored, Aage. I've already got you on the list, man. We're going to hang out. Absolutely. Yeah.
Sounds good.
Done.
Let's do it.
No, I'm grateful for this, guys. This was fascinating and outstanding. I mean, it's just an honor to expand consciousness with you, gentlemen, honestly.
It's an honor you guys want to have me on. And by the way, there's something I want to tell you. I don't teach time travel, but I tell you how to do it. In this book, Spiritual Science, Higher Conscious Thinking, and How to Access the Universal Consciousness. First of all, I teach you how to use your mind in ways that you normally would think would be impossible. And I think it's one of the last chapters in here. I explain how you can actually do mental time travel. It's not that hard to learn, but take a little practice. But I have run into people after they got the book and they start practicing. Yeah, they were able to do it. So you can go to Amazon and you'll find the book, and you can go to Amazon anyway and look at all the subjects that is written about. Mm-hmm. There's about 70 some different subjects, anything but how the universe was created, why there were no Big Bang, and all kinds of goofy stuff out there.
Broadcast Alpha Team for Aage, Expanding Reality again for Brandon. Guys, thanks to everybody who made it this far in the podcast. We love you guys. See you next time. Please, Aage and Brandon, stay with me for 2 more minutes, okay?
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you all for watching and listening. This was awesome.